Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What's going on, Internet? Eric Banholz here, founder of Beard Brand, and we have another e-commerce conversation. As always, I have a special guest in the house. Got Ayman with AppSumo, and today we're going to talk about the hiring process, specifically making your first hire, bringing those people on, and maybe how to not make the same mistakes that we've made over the years. So, Ayman, why don't you go ahead and give our listeners a little intro?
Thanks, Eric. Happy to be here. My name's Ayman. I'm the current CEO of AppSumo.com. We're an e-commerce site for entrepreneurs to help grow and scale their business. We sell lifetime deals on SaaS products that help freelancers and solo entrepreneurs scale their business well beyond 6, 7, and 8 figures. Before that, I had started and sold a couple businesses, as well as been a product marketing manager at Microsoft.
Yeah, I think it's... in my world, it's so easy to think of e-commerce as like buying products and selling products, but there's this whole other world of digital products and subscriptions and stuff that kind of just slips in my mind that it exists. Yeah. And it's not a small market at all.
No, not at all. AppSumo business model is super interesting in that we go out and we find incredible products that nobody's heard of, and we end up negotiating incredible deals to make sure that we can provide our customers with the best offerings out there for software. And so a lot of times we'll end up getting software that's worth $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and you end up only having to pay $49 once. And that's a great thing for our customers because obviously they're getting incredible software at a really great price. But it's also a great thing for our partners because they get immediate exposure to 6,000, 7,000 customers, an overnight marketing channel, incredible SEO boost, incredible press boost. They get to dictate now their roadmap based on real usage, and they just get a ton of exposure to the world.
Yeah. The products you're bringing to the marketplace, are a lot of them geared towards e-commerce brands, or what kind of person should be subscribed to your newsletter?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're running a business or wanting to run a business, the very first thing you should be doing is subscribing to AppSumo, because the software that we promote is everything from social media tools to Facebook advertising, analytic tools to client portals to anything under the sun. Pretty much like we promote 8 products a month, and all of them are designed to help you grow and scale your business. And if you're running an e-commerce business, or you're a freelance consultant, or you're just an entrepreneur that is excited about wanting to start a business, it's actually, I've been a subscriber myself 5 years even before I joined the company, because the deals were so great.
Cool. Now, you've taken that business. We were talking a little bit before the podcast. You've taken this business from essentially one employee who was
me,
yourself,
yeah,
up to a team of 14 now.
That's right.
Obviously, Noah started the business, right?
That's correct.
Was he running it by himself for?
So yeah, to give you a quick background on the history of the company, the company was founded by Noah Kagan, and so for the first few years they were growing the business. About 4 or 5 years into the business, they end up starting to build their own internal software tools to grow their own email list. Email is the bread and butter of almost any e-commerce business. And so we wanted to just grow our email list even more. And so they started creating pop-up software and welcome mat takeover software, which would eventually become SumoMe. And so that business started to get spun off. They're like, we want to double down on this. We want to double down on this opportunity. We need someone to run the core business, AppSumo, to keep the lights running while we focus on growing Sumo. Sumo now was SumoMe. And so that's where I came in. So they hired me in early 2015, and they're like, hey, just come in, make sure the lights stay on while the whole company basically transitions to SumoMe. So I've been doing that since 2015. So basically, yeah, Noah built an awesome foundation. He helped grow the company, and he built a great system that allowed me to sort of step in and plug and play into a process that had already been optimized for where it was at that time. But the reason I joined the company was because I was so excited, because I saw there was a lot of meat left on the bone. I remember saying that on the phone with him. I'm like, there's a lot more opportunities. Like, that's great, but for the meantime, just keep the lights on.
Yeah, it's funny because I've talked with Noah about AppSumo in the past as well, and I think he had super low expectations with the potential of AppSumo and where it could go. And I think his expectation was you would just run it, right? And it would kind of do what it was doing and make money. And the fact that you've been able to bring on 14 team members and significant number of independent contractors as well, says something, of course, to your abilities, but also to the product and what the value it brings to the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great that I was able to step into a business that already had an awesome foundation. Anton, who was running the business before me, did a great job training me, and I was able to just sort of hit the ground running. I'd already been a customer, and so it was very easy for me to step in and go, all right, let me just run the business as is. But having said that, I was the only person running the company, right? I was closing the deals, writing the copy, setting up the emails, doing the HTML, answering the customer the comments, and that was great, just to keep the lights on. But if we wanted to take it to the needed level, we needed to start hiring, we needed to start scaling. And so once Sumo was sustainable, that's when I was able to start doubling down and investing in growing the business.
Yeah, talk about those early hires and more specifically all the mistakes that you made with those early hires and the strategy you had early on.
Yeah, I think like some of the biggest mistakes I made wasn't even with AppSumo. It's probably like in my first few businesses. It's very tempting to immediately just go, what's annoying on my plate and how do I outsource that, right? And so like what is almost every solo entrepreneur do is like they hire a VA. And it's like, book my travel and like organize my calendar. And then like they hire the VA and like it feels like they're spending more time teaching the VA how to do the basic stuff. And like no time has been removed off their plate. And so when I stepped into AppSumo, I realized where is the time, where could I be spending my time to double down to help grow the business? And for me, that was about closing more deals, because at the time there was often times where I'm closing a deal on Monday, I'm writing the copy on Tuesday, the email goes out on Wednesday. There's just not a lot of time and opportunity for me to grow the business that way. And so I can't close more deals until I get copywriting off my plate, because that took a lot of time, until I get the deal set up off my plate. That took a lot of time. And so those two things, I ended up hiring, number one, an intern for, a local intern, which I recommend any solo entrepreneur that's working on their own or has an e-commerce business on their own, to start with an intern, a local intern.
Is that a paid intern or free?
It's a paid intern. So what we did was we ended up creating a job description, and we went to UT Austin, because we're based in Austin, and we went to one of the finance groups here in town, and we said, hey, we've got an internship. It's a paid internship, but it's $10, $15 an hour, right? And we ended up hiring Kavi Shah. He's currently working at McKinsey, one of the greatest consulting agencies in the world. But we were able to get him for $15 an hour, and he was able to step in, and he was valedictorian, perfect SAT score, like super sharp kid, right? And we're able to get him for $15 an hour, and he's super pumped. He's motivated. He's working on a real business, and he's able to help take some of the work off my plate so that I can double down on the areas where I can grow the business, which is closing more deals.
Right. Was this a full-time thing over the summer, or we've never done internships, so I know nothing about that.
Totally. So what we do, that's one of the best things about it, is you can say, hey, look, I understand you're a student. I'm willing to be flexible around your schedule. Meet with me for 10 hours a week. So it's $150 a week. We're going to meet up at a coffee shop, and we'll work. And I'll work around your schedule during finals times. Remember, oftentimes you're doing the work yourself. So any additional hours you can get from this person is just an added benefit. But the great thing is, like, oftentimes they're so excited about the opportunity, they want to give you more. They want to give you more hours. Even during finals week, they're still working. Maybe it'd be from the school library, but they're still working. And a lot of times people are worried about interns because they're like, well, they're only going to be around for 3 months. We actually, to this day, it's been 2 years since then. To this day, what ends up happening is after their semester is over, they go, well, I'm leaving. I'm going to go do an internship in San Francisco, but I have my roommate that's very sharp. I want to introduce you, and I'll be willing to help onboard them. And it's literally like, it becomes like something that like they pass down from like his father and his father, like they're passing down from generation. And like, it feels like there's like a lineage now, like 2 years later, we still have an intern in the office that's been passed down from that same lineage. And so it's something that they can just pass down from each other.
That's cool. So you bring in that intern. How, like, I think I've looked at interns before as well, and you do have like the guys who are valedictorians, but how many valedictorians are there? How do you get the valedictorian? How do you get that person that's super driven?
So it always starts with the job description. I think like your last episode was about copywriting. The highest ROI copy you can write is your job descriptions, because the people that step into your company are the ones that are going to 10x the business. And so we end up spending about a week just writing that job description and making sure that it's optimized to get people pumped. To this day, even now that we've got 14 full-time employees, every job description goes through a very in-depth vetting process where we focus and double down on what will get people excited. And so we talk about the things that really smart people like: autonomy, the ability to work on really interesting and unique, challenging problems, the ability for you to have a seat at the table when it comes to strategy, the ability for your ideas to be heard. All of those things are the things that really smart people are looking for. And if you can convey that in your job description, you're going to end up getting really sharp candidates. That's number one. Number two, you have to go out and source. A lot of times people think they're going to throw up a job description and the best candidates are just going to fall into their lap. But this, at least right now, it's a very tough environment. You got companies like Facebook paying $400,000 a year to engineers. You got to make sure you're knocking the doors down and finding the best candidates and really selling your company over anyone else, because it is a tough hiring environment. And your job as CEO is to make sure that the best people are in the building.
Right. What? Obviously, you can't pay $400,000 for engineers. So, do you have concerns over these people, leaving in 3 months to take that high-paying job from Facebook, or do you feel so much value comes from the culture of an organization that people aren't always driven by that salary?
Money's always important, right? Like, you're going to have to at least figure out a way to at least take money off the table. But I think like you've even mentioned this yourself, like there is incredible non-monetary value from all the intangibles that you can get from a company like ours, right? Where you do have a seat at the table from strategy perspective. It is a fun company to work for. There are incredible benefits that are just outside of the norm. And so I think like there's a law of diminishing returns when it comes to salary. And I think like once people hit a certain level, and that's unique to everybody, they realize like it doesn't really matter if I get an extra $10,000 if I can have more autonomy. No one's watching over me. I'm not getting micromanaged. I can contribute to strategy. I'm not working on one button on page 6, and I'm able to work on exciting projects that all of a sudden money is no longer relevant to them.
Right. What, obviously, you probably had some growing pains bringing these people on. What were some of the mistakes that you made during this process?
So I think the biggest mistake is rushing the hiring process. When you're a small team, culture fit is so critical, because one person can influence half the team and skew culture in the wrong direction. And so you have to recognize that it's going to take 3 months at a minimum to bring on a good quality hire, and 6 months if that hire is someone that has multiple skills that you're looking for. So that could be a senior leadership hire. So that's the first thing is being realistic with your time frame. So if your team can't handle 3 months of being lean, then you'll need to bring on a contractor to alleviate some of that pressure. So the biggest mistakes that we've made hiring has been rushing the hire, is filling a role because our support tickets were racking up and we just needed to fill the role so that way we're not being bogged down. And we ended up hiring someone that just wasn't a good fit for us and having to let them go a few months later. And so that to me is like the biggest mistake, is just trying to shoehorn a role or shoehorn a person into the company that just isn't a good fit.
Yeah, I think I can totally agree with that. It's challenging. the person you should be hiring, you have to be so excited to get them there that there's like absolutely like no red flags at all. Because I mean, there are going to be issues that arise over the course of working with people that you'll be able to work through. But before they actually start, you should think that this is the most amazing person ever that will fill this position. And if you have any kind of hesitancies, then just don't make that move, because you are going to have to end up parting ways.
Yeah.
In 6 months.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we have, now we've created a checklist before we make the final decision. And the very first checklist is this a fuck yes? If not, it's a no. Right. And if we're not 100% pumped, if we're trying to convince ourselves, hey, this is a good role, then we've failed somewhere in the process where we just didn't have enough qualified candidates. And now we're trying to convince ourselves that a subpar candidate should be hired. And I'd much rather walk away from a candidate and say, hey, this isn't going to be a good fit, than spend 6 months training and onboarding them and realizing like this is just a complete waste of our time on both sides.
Yeah. And they're not happy. And
exactly.
And you're holding them back from finding the opportunity that's really going to be a good fit for them. You talked about, I mean, this is 3 months. How can it take 3 months to hire someone? Walk me through your step-by-step. Obviously we've covered the great job description.
Yeah.
What happens from there?
Yeah. So, we've actually got like a really well thought out process. And, that includes, number one, just syncing with the hiring manager to identify the need. Like, identify what measurables are going to be we're going to be looking for success for this candidate. And this should be super clear from a metric standpoint. So it should be individual will be able to bring in $3 million in revenue from partnerships. That's it, right? They're not going to be starting a new partnership channel. They are not going to be working on the marketing campaign. They are simply going to be bringing in $3 million in business through the partnerships. So that's the first thing, is like identifying the success metrics. The next step is drafting a job description that would get that ideal candidate excited. And one thing that we like to do is we go, if we could hire anyone in the world, and it's usually someone from our network, what would they get excited about? And we'll usually write that job description. So a perfect example is like, hey, like let's say I wanted to hire someone to grow our YouTube channel, right? In my head, I'm like, I'm going to hire someone like Eric. So I'm literally going to write my job description based on how can I convince Eric to get pumped about coming to AppSumo. And I'll write that out. And all of a sudden I've gotten a job description that's really exciting. And I feel like it would be compelling enough to present to someone like you. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to find, the dollar store version of Eric, right? Obviously never going to get you, right? So that's the first thing, is like identifying the need, writing the job description. Then the third step, and this is the step that a lot of people skip out on, is not just posting on job boards, but sourcing. I think one of the mistakes that we made early on was we would simply put up on Indeed and Glassdoor and Angel, and just we'll check in a week, and I guarantee we're going to have some great candidates. And that was rarely the case. The best candidates are already happy at a job. That person, they've probably already gotten 3 or 4 promotions. They probably just got a promotion last month, so that the last thing they're doing is looking for a job. And so, she's probably sitting in some office somewhere, super happy, getting paid very well. And the last thing she's doing is looking for a new job. And so what we require for every hiring manager is to source 100 candidates, usually on LinkedIn or Angel. And so we'll have them go out and physically add people on LinkedIn that match the skills, because you can go on LinkedIn and search, hey, I'm looking for a PPC person. So you'll search the PPC keyword, you will filter to Austin, because we'll hire local, and first and second degree connections. And all of a sudden you've got 300 potential candidates that you can add as a request. You add a bunch of them, maybe 10% will add you back. Of those 10%, you'll message out to them, hey, I saw your profile. We're currently hiring for this position. Your profile looks like it would be a good fit because of XYZ experience. And you make it custom to their profile. And you're like, I'd love to jump on a call, even if you're not looking, just to chat, because I'd love to meet you more. And our last 3 hires have come through this process.
Okay. So you do the sourcing. I love that. One of the hacks that I use is a software called Duck's Soup, which will essentially automate that process in a slightly different way. What it allows it to do is basically when you look at a profile, and if you have this turned on LinkedIn, where you can be allowed that you've seen a profile, it will essentially notify the other person that, hey, Eric Banholtz looked at your profile And then they're like, oh, who's this Eric Banholz guy? And then they go to my profile, and in my profile, it says, we're now hiring customer experience people.
Right.
Find out more at careers.beardbrand.com.
Love that.
So that's kind of been our strategy, but I like the even more proactive approach that you guys are taking. So you're sourcing these people, you're finding on LinkedIn, you're proactive, you got the compelling job step. What is, I guess, like walk through what that first phone call is like, and then how you take them through the rest of the steps.
Yeah, so that's another major mistake that we would make is we would make the first initial phone screen a phone screen. It wouldn't be video, and people are awesome on phone, right? Like they've mastered the ability to have great phone etiquette. And then you go and you meet them in person, and you meet them at a coffee shop, and you're like, holy shit, this is very different than what I expected. And so for us to save everybody's time, like the very first phone screen has to be done via video. And it's usually a 10-minute video screen. So the ability for us to just both get on the same page and make sure that it's a good fit on both sides. And this has drastically reduced the amount of false positives that we've had in our hiring process. And so that was one of the major changes, is making sure that the initial phone screen is done via video.
Yeah, because if you've got a long hiring process with multiple interviews, you don't want to be wasting your time bringing these people in for half an hour interview. You want to be efficient, see it, make that decision, cut them out, or move them forward.
Exactly. And so we'll do like 3 in 1.5 hour, where it used to take a half hour via phone. And then on top of that, we would bring them in for coffee. And then we'd realize, in the coffee, we're like, this just isn't going to be a good culture fit. This isn't going to be a good skills fit. Whereas with a 10-minute video call, we can immediately determine, hey, is this going to be a good fit on both sides? So we'll do that. And then right after that,
what kind of questions are you asking there?
We always ask like the same basic questions, is like, hey, what are you looking for in your next role? Right. We look at their LinkedIn profile. We looked at their resume. We can see that a lot of times they have a lot of very diverse experience. And so we're like, well, what are you looking for in your next role? And sometimes, like for instance, for engineering, we'll have people that go, I love engineering, but I'm looking to move into a managerial role. And they'll tell us this in the video screen. And we'll realize, like, look, this is actually, you're going to be pushing code in this role. So this isn't going to be a good fit. So that's the first thing, is finding out what they're looking for and making sure that there's a skills like priorities alignment. The next thing is just figuring out, is there going to be a good culture fit? For us, like our culture, everyone on the team has what we call like their SEALs. And so that's an acronym. Like they're all selfless. They're very team oriented. Everyone's entrepreneurial. They're very resourceful. They're athletic, which means they're very scores and metrics driven. And finally, they're leaders. They're willing to take ownership of their own team. And so we make sure, hey, would this person be a SEAL? Could this person join us from a SEAL perspective? And then lastly, we just make sure that there's good alignment in terms of trajectory. Like, is this a stepping stone role? Is this a role? Could they end up replacing their manager if their manager ends up getting promoted? And so all of those things you can quickly determine in 10 minutes via video screen. It ends up being hidden a lot quicker when someone's doing that on a phone.
And are you looking for candidates who are looking to grow then?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the things we really look for is like, if we were to hire this person, would they raise the average of the company? If not, we typically say no. We want every hire. I want it to the point where the next 3 hires, I literally couldn't get hired again at AppSumo because the bar has been raised so high.
If you leave, you're never getting back in.
I'm never getting back in. Exactly. Like I got into the party, but like there's a line out front, and now like if I went outside, the bouncer wouldn't even look my way. Right. And that's the way we want. That's the way the hiring process should be. Is every hire should raise the average. The next thing that we want to make sure is that like could this person step up and take over whoever is going to be hiring them? Because we want everyone in the company to be moving up, both in skill set as well as their own career trajectory. And so we want that person, when we're hiring them, we want to already be thinking about their first promotion. Yeah, and make sure that they're ready for it.
Cool. All right. So you take them through this screening call, then you bring them into the office for like another interview, or what's the next step?
Yeah. So the next step would be just an in-person coffee with myself and the hiring manager. We used to do it with the entire team.
And the screening call is done by who?
So the screening call is usually done by the hiring manager.
Okay.
So it's done by the hiring manager, but then we'll bring him in to a coffee. And we used to do this with the entire team, but it ends up taking a lot of time. And sometimes you end up learning things in the coffee that you end up rejecting them right there. So we'll typically do a coffee between me and the hiring manager. And right after that, we can determine, hey, is this person a solid candidate? And so if they are someone that we want to have the entire team meet, we'll either schedule a follow-up coffee with them and the entire team, where the team is actually, we've already split them up. Like a portion of the team is focusing on culture fit, a portion of the team is focusing on skills fit, a portion of the team is focusing on personal and like the things they like to do on the weekends. And then the last is the team that's focused on career trajectory and making sure that they're aligned with the company's goals. And so we'll do an in-person coffee with the entire team. And then the last thing that they have to do is a take-home challenge. And depending on the role, the take-home challenge gets introduced into the hiring process either earlier or later on. For high volume roles like customer support, where there's 100 candidates for one position, we'll typically introduce that challenge a lot earlier into the process to weed out a lot of the candidates. For roles where we are basically like, having to knock down doors to get someone in the door, like engineers, we'll usually bring that in after they've been sold on the company.
Yeah. So tell me more about that in-person coffee. They're coming in. How they're meeting the whole team. How long is that? Is that like an all day thing? Is that a couple hours? Is that 30 minutes?
It's a 1 hour thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do for 1 hour. We break up our company into 4 teams, and they come in every 15 minutes.
Okay. So they're essentially meeting with 3 people every 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone through the all day hiring process. I don't know if you've read the book Blink. Basically, humans are really good at just intuitively learning things very quickly within just a few minutes. And there actually isn't any positive correlation with length of time and the ability to make a more informed decision about a candidate. You can distill a lot of information very quickly from an individual. And so to us, the taxing of an all day interview process is, when we used to do it and we look back at our metrics, we're actually having a higher success rate from a hiring perspective and from a longevity perspective. And we do an employee NPS, like an employee rating. Our employee ratings are higher using this quicker, faster hiring process than we did when we were doing the all day hiring process.
Right. So how is a decision made then if everyone's weighing in on the candidates and
Totally. So then that
what if not someone's not bought in?
Yeah. So we used to go through everyone has to be bought in. But once you go past 6 people, you can no longer have the consensus, right? So after 6 people, you have to go into, being able to make the call yourself. And so we used to have it being an open forum where everyone would be able to contribute. Now we go after the coffee, everyone just has to DM me via Slack. Hey, give me your feedback. And it'll usually be, if 90% of the people are excited, and there's one person that isn't, oftentimes it's valid feedback, and we'll definitely take that into consideration.
And if they're working closely with them, or
exactly, yeah, of course you're gonna weigh all of those things depending on the role and all of those individual factors, and then ultimately it's just gonna have to be you on being able to make the decision. And it's important to go back to your original JD, your original job description, and go, could this person, based on their historicals, based on the interview process, based on what you know about their skill set, could they contribute and deliver the results that you laid out in the original job description? Could they bring on that $3 million based on partnerships, and not try to shoehorn that role? And I know that, for us, it's worked incredibly well.
Yeah. Let's kind of talk about the final element, which is probably the 100-pound elephant. Was it 1,000-pound gorilla in the room? But the compensation. How do you come up with your compensation? How do you keep it consistent?
Yeah.
And then how do you make that offer, and really how do you onboard them and train them and get them up to snuff?
Yeah. I think to us, it's not about, we almost don't do no negotiation. We just pay based on market. We go, hey, we're gonna give you 75% of what market is in Austin for this particular role.
Is that across the board for all jobs?
For the most part, yeah. So we go, we're going to do 75% of market based on the role. And we also have additional benefits that end up bringing that almost to 100%. Like we have free lunches every day, where we go out, and we're not bringing catered lunches. We're actually going out to really nice restaurants in town. We have 2 company trips. We just got back from San Diego, where we rented an incredible Airbnb mansion overlooking the water. Before that, we were in Hawaii. So there's a lot of additional things that we talk about from the benefits perspective in addition to the salary. And so for us, like we try to just avoid the whole compensation conversation. It's like, look, this is what you'd be making. We want money to be off the table,
right?
And so we want it to be where you would be making essentially the same, if not more, than you would be at anywhere else for this same position. And that's number one. Number two is we also talk about, like, we don't expect you to stay at this position. We want everyone to get promoted very quickly. Right. And so being able to talk about not just this role, but the next role, maybe a year, 18 months from now, and get them excited about that as well, allows them to see their future at the company.
That's pretty cool. So, like, for them to get a raise,
yeah,
it's more about promoting themselves within the company to a new role.
That's right.
Are you creating, like, new roles for particular people all the time? And will they have to hire the replacement first to move into that role? Or it seems like a lot of juggling, a lot of things in the air.
Yeah. One of the biggest, I guess, like, mistakes that early startups is title bloat.
Right.
And, like, this is something that we, like, when I made my first 3 hires, they were all chief of sales, right, chief marketing officer. And it's like, well, there's 4 people in the company. Like, let's take a reset. And so when you're building out your org structure, you should be building out a lot of buffer. Right? There should be like 3-4 levels above and below each role, right? So there's opportunities for growth across the board. And so right now we have no VPs. We have no chiefs on our company. We've got director level, we've got head level, we have manager level, and then we've got individual contributor. And all 4 of those also have senior titles. Mm-hmm. And so now, like, we're not creating roles. The roles are already there because we've built out that Christmas tree approach.
Right.
And so people can see that clear path. And we think that, like, we want to take a step back. It has nothing to do with time. It has everything to do with results. We've laid out what is expected at each role, right? And so, like, an individual contributor, we just want you to make sure you're getting your job done. Your metrics are there. Manager, certain level. Director, you have full control of your domain. Head, you're making full strategic level decisions. And so everyone knows what is expected of them at each level. And we tell them, hey, if you want to get promoted to the next position, already act as if. Already start acting like you're in that next level. And people are getting promoted within 6 months because they've simply stepped up right on day one.
Right. So they've essentially created this new role by acting that role.
That's right.
And now they earn that. And then you look for the replacement and make that additional hire, or they're just so productive that you don't need to hire the replacement?
It depends on the role. Sometimes the role ends up expanding where you are looking to hire a replacement. But oftentimes, like, that's what makes contractors so great, is, like, you end up being able to just hire a really competent contractor, and that person can now move into actually, like, spending the day doing the work, and instead spend 5 minutes approving the work. And now it opens them up to do more higher leverage items, outside of the company. An easy example would be just copywriting. Like, if someone were to come in and be a copywriter and eventually step up and become like, hey, like, I want to be now an editor. It's like, perfect. Go and find a copyright consultant. And now you are going to be being the final approver on the copy, but you're now also in charge of everything else related to content.
Yeah. Man, I think I could probably talk about this issue in building a team, because that's kind of where we're at now, 20
right.
people. And I feel like we've made a lot of mistakes and implement a lot of the similar things in our own way that
right.
you do. Are there any, like, books that were great inspiration for you in this, or any other resources that our listeners might find value in?
I know you're a huge fan of, like, the Who method. And I've, like, read all, like, the major hiring and the major, like, organizational structure books. I'm just not a fan of any of them. I think, like, you have to it's sort of a trial and error process based on your own individual company, because every company is going to be unique. Some companies, they're a team of mercenaries, right? They're super excited about just high level, high results driven individuals. And they don't care about getting along with anyone at work. If everyone at work is a shark, but they're delivering results, they're happy with that. Whereas other places, it's like a skate shop. Like, everyone's homies, and, like, they're just coming to have a good time. And, like, I think, like, we've done a good job of being able to balance results. We 4X the business from a revenue perspective while we've grown the company. But also, like, everyone has a great time. Like, we hang out together on the weekends. And so there's no book that, like, helps you navigate that process. I think you kind of have to learn that on your own. Oftentimes just piecemealing the best parts of different areas to create your own recipe.
Yeah. If our listeners want to get in contact with you, where should they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Broker Change on Twitter, or just come to AppSumo. You'll find me on the About page.
Awesome, man. This has been a great chat. I really enjoyed it. I hope our listeners enjoyed it as well. As always, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for engaging. Cheers.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
And keep on growing.